What if I told you that an unassuming kitchen worker could turn a failing restaurant into a thriving success? Imagine discovering a hidden culinary genius right under your nose. Sounds unbelievable, right? This is the story of a restaurant owner who had no idea what his employee was truly capable of until one fateful night. Get ready for a journey of unexpected success, passion, and ambition that will change their lives forever. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true stories. The scene unfolds in a small, aging restaurant tucked away on a busy street. Once the pride of its owner, Peter, the restaurant is now struggling with lackluster performance. Despite his efforts, the customer base continues to shrink, and every day feels like a reminder of failure. Peter, the restaurant owner, is at his wit's end. He's passionate about food, but lacks fresh ideas to turn the business around. Trying to keep the status quo, he holds on to an old, unexciting menu, which, while familiar, does nothing to spark interest. Despite his hard work, the place seems to be slipping further into obscurity. Peter is a middle-aged man, deeply passionate about cooking, but without the new ideas needed to keep the restaurant thriving. His attempts to maintain the business with the same old dishes have failed to capture the attention of new customers. With each passing day, he feels more pressure to find a solution, yet nothing seems to work. The restaurant is fading, and so is his hope for success. Then there's Mike, a seemingly quiet and diligent kitchen worker. He's not a person who stands out, never demanding attention. Mike works in the background, doing simple tasks like chopping vegetables, prepping ingredients, and washing dishes. He's a reliable employee, but his talent has never been recognized by anyone, least of all Peter. Mike, however, carries with him a secret. He's a former renowned chef who walked away from a promising career due to a tragedy in his past that led him to abandon his dreams of cooking professionally. Instead, he took a job in Peter's restaurant simply to get by. He works quietly, unnoticed, because his love for cooking has turned into something he no longer dares to pursue. Peter, unaware of Mike's past or potential, has no reason to expect anything extraordinary from him. To Peter, Mike is just another worker, quiet, unassuming, and diligent, yet nothing special. But Mike's journey has been far from ordinary. There's a deep sadness behind his quiet demeanor, something that's haunted him for years. He once held the title of a master chef in a renowned restaurant, but after a painful, life-altering event, he shut away that part of himself. Now, Mike just wants to live quietly, blending into the background of the kitchen and not drawing attention to himself. For Peter, the restaurant represents a huge weight on his shoulders. The business isn't going well, and he feels lost. He's tried everything to bring in customers, but nothing seems to work. Every night, he faces the daunting reality that his dreams of a successful restaurant might be slipping away. He feels the walls closing in, and the pressure to succeed weighs heavily on him. Then one fateful night, everything changes. The restaurant is packed with customers. The busiest night in weeks. Peter is running around frantically, trying to keep up with the orders, his stress building as the pressure mounts. At that moment, Mike steps up, offering to help. Peter, overwhelmed and desperate, reluctantly agrees. Mike, without hesitation, takes control in the kitchen. The dishes coming out are like nothing Peter has seen before, vibrant, innovative, and bursting with flavors. The customers, who had been growing restless, are suddenly raving about the food. Peter, stunned, watches as Mike effortlessly moves through the kitchen, creating dishes that not only save the night, but also change the course of the restaurant's future. Peter is left in disbelief. He never imagined that Mike, the quiet and unassuming worker, could be the answer to all his problems. As the night goes on, Peter watches Mike with growing admiration, realizing that he has a hidden talent far beyond anything he could have expected. In that moment, Peter sees Mike in an entirely new light, not as just an employee, but as a master chef with a passion for food. After the chaos of the night settles down, Peter approaches Mike. "Where did you learn to cook like that?" he asks, curiosity piqued. Mike pauses, a shadow crossing his face. "I used to be a chef at a prestigious restaurant," he says quietly, "but I gave it up after something happened. I'm just here to work, that's all." Peter senses that there's more to Mike's story than he's letting on. There's pain in his words, a story of loss that Peter can only begin to understand. But for now, Peter sees only the incredible skill that Mike possesses, and he knows that this could be the turning point for the restaurant. Peter doesn't sleep that night. His mind races, replaying the events over and over. Could Mike really be the key to saving the restaurant? And if so, how can he give Mike the opportunity he deserves? Peter knows that he's not just dealing with a talented cook, but with a person who carries deep emotional wounds. Giving Mike a chance means more than just revamping the menu. It means allowing someone to heal and rediscover their passion. But is Peter willing to take that risk? The internal conflict churns within Peter. He's faced with the decision of a lifetime to open the door for someone who could change everything or to continue down the same familiar path. Could Mike's hidden talent be the salvation the restaurant so desperately needs? Peter wrestles with these questions as the weight of the decision presses on him, knowing that the answer could shape the future of both his business and Mike's life. At this point in the story, we shift to the perspective of Mike, the quiet and unassuming kitchen worker, whose background holds a secret that could change the course of not only the restaurant, but also his own life. Although Mike seems like just another employee, his journey is far from ordinary. He's not the type to seek attention or step into the limelight, but within him lies a story of passion, loss, and unfulfilled potential that would surprise everyone, especially Peter. Mike's life has been marked by silence and solitude. No one really knows who he is or where he came from. Not even Peter, the restaurant owner, realizes the depth of his skills and the pain that has shaped him into who he is today. To most people, Mike is simply a kitchen hand, quiet, diligent, and reliable, but easily overlooked. His talent, however, is something he has deliberately hidden, something he's been running from ever since a life-changing tragedy. Mike was once a celebrated chef, known for his ability to craft extraordinary dishes that combined artistry with culinary mastery. His reputation was stellar in the restaurant world. He could make a dish sing with flavors, presenting food that was not just a meal but an experience. Every dish he created had a story to tell, a perfect balance of ingredients, a symphony of flavors that left a lasting impression on anyone who tasted his creations. However, everything changed one fateful day. The restaurant Mike worked for was suddenly hit by an economic crisis. Business dwindled, and the entire establishment came crumbling down. The people he had worked alongside, the friends he'd made, were forced to move on. The stress of it all led to an internal conflict in the restaurant that fractured the once strong team. Then came the tragedy, a tragic accident involving a colleague who Mike was particularly close to. The loss of that friend struck Mike deeply, breaking his spirit. After that, he couldn't bear to cook, couldn't bear to be part of a profession that had once brought him so much joy. The trauma was too much for him to handle. So he walked away from it all. Mike chose a quieter life. He found a job at Peter's restaurant, where he could disappear into the background, working quietly, never drawing attention to himself. It wasn't the same as his old life. He wasn't creating masterpieces in the kitchen anymore. He was simply doing the grunt work, chopping vegetables, washing dishes, preparing ingredients. And that suited him just fine. He wasn't looking for recognition or fame anymore. He just wanted peace. But things weren't so simple. Beneath Mike's calm exterior, the love for cooking never truly went away. It had been buried under layers of pain and fear. But it was still there, always present in the back of his mind. The thing that kept him from returning to his true passion was fear of failure, fear of getting hurt again, and most of all, fear of what might happen if he allowed himself to care again. Cooking had once been his everything, but now it was a painful reminder of everything he had lost. Then, one chaotic evening, everything changed. Peter's restaurant was overflowing with customers, and orders were coming in faster than anyone could handle. Peter, overwhelmed and struggling, looked around desperately for help. That's when Mike, without a word, stepped up. He didn't announce his intentions or seek permission. He simply moved into the kitchen and began cooking. It was a natural reaction, a muscle memory that came flooding back the moment he stepped into the kitchen. As he began to prepare the dishes, Mike's long-hidden culinary skills resurfaced, each dish becoming more than just food. It was an expression of his unspoken passion. The results were immediate and astonishing. The customers, who had been waiting impatiently, were suddenly delighted by the fresh, flavorful dishes coming out of the kitchen. Mike's talent shone through in every plate, and Peter, who had been running around frantically, couldn't help but notice. As the night went on, he saw Mike in a new light, realizing that the quiet man who had always been in the background was a culinary genius. Mike, however, was not yet ready to confront this truth. The moment passed, and he went back to his quiet work, pretending that nothing had changed. But deep down, he knew that something had shifted within him. That night had brought him closer to the thing he had been running from for so long, his own passion for cooking. Yet he wasn't ready to face it. The fear of falling in love with something again, only to lose it, was still too strong. The next morning, Peter approached Mike, his curiosity piqued. "Where did you learn to cook like that?" he asked, genuinely surprised by what he had witnessed. Mike froze for a moment, his heart racing. He wanted to answer, to tell Peter the truth, but the words caught in his throat. His past, the success, the loss, the pain, it was all too much. "I used to be a chef at a prestigious restaurant," Mike said quietly, his voice tinged with sadness. "But I gave it up after what happened." Peter could tell that there was more to the story, but Mike wasn't ready to share. Still, Peter's recognition of his talent stirred something in Mike. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen. It wasn't just about cooking anymore. It was about confronting his past and deciding whether he was ready to embrace it again. Mike's internal conflict deepened. He had spent years running from his past, hiding from his talent. But now he was at a crossroads. Peter was offering him a chance, but was he ready to take it? Could he allow himself to feel the passion for cooking again? Could he trust that this time, things would be different? In that moment, Mike realized that the decision wasn't just about cooking. It was about healing, about reclaiming the part of himself that he had lost. And although he wasn't ready to fully embrace it, he knew that his journey back to the kitchen, back to his passion, was just beginning. After that night, Peter couldn't stop thinking about what had happened in the kitchen. The image of Mike, someone he had always seen as just a quiet worker, now a culinary genius, made Peter question everything he thought he knew about his restaurant and even about himself. It was undeniable that Mike's dishes had saved the restaurant that night, but Peter felt there was something even bigger at play. This was not just a change in the business. It was a change in the relationship between Peter and Mike. Peter stood at the door of the restaurant the following morning, exhausted, his mind still spinning with one question. Should I give Mike this chance? Can I afford to take that risk? The long nights, the endless days counting the moments that had passed, made Peter realize that this change couldn't wait. His restaurant needed a fresh wave of energy, a complete transformation, and Mike could be the one to bring that about. But there was a truth Peter couldn't ignore. In giving Mike this opportunity, he wasn't just placing faith in Mike's talent, he was opening a door to Mike's past, a door Peter wasn't sure he was ready to face. He's not just a talented cook. He has a story that I haven't even begun to understand, a story I need to know more about, Peter thought, sitting alone in his office. Mike, who Peter had only ever seen as a quiet kitchen hand, now held the key to everything. But Mike was no ordinary person. He had a past, and the price for unlocking that past could be steep. Peter felt a deep inner conflict growing within him. Could he really trust Mike, who carried so much emotional baggage? Could Mike actually handle the pressure, the expectations, or would he run from the opportunity, just as he had run from his past? The image of Mike, a man burdened by pain, now standing at the threshold of a chance to start over, weighed heavily on Peter. The price of this new beginning wasn't just about work, it was about facing his demons, confronting a past that would never truly go away. Peter stared at himself in the mirror, his hands shaking. He couldn't believe that one simple decision could lead to such a massive turning point. I can't just change everything because of one night. But if I don't, will the restaurant even survive? Can I live with the decision if things go wrong? The questions circled in his mind, without any clear answers. Each passing moment felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff. One wrong step and everything would fall apart. But what made this even harder was the emotional conflict between logic and heart. Logic told him that this was his restaurant's only chance, but his heart kept pulling him back, warning him about the complexities of Mike's past and the potential for failure. Peter knew that giving Mike this chance wasn't just about revamping the menu, it was about something much deeper. He wasn't just offering a role in the kitchen. He was offering a chance to face the past, to acknowledge the pain Mike had been running from. But Peter couldn't ignore the truth. Mike wasn't ready to open up. His silence spoke volumes, and Peter felt that if he pushed too hard, he might lose Mike forever. Can I risk it? Can I trust that Mike will actually step up? What if he falls apart again? Peter thought, his head pounding with uncertainty. He had to believe in Mike's potential, but the risk was overwhelming. Peter knew that by giving Mike this opportunity, he would have to take a stand not just professionally, but emotionally. He would have to defend Mike against those who would doubt him, against the other staff who would question his abilities. Mike had hidden his past for so long, and unveiling it wasn't going to be easy. It wouldn't just be a professional challenge, it would be a personal one for both of them. The weight of Peter's thoughts grew heavier. The restaurant could no longer remain stagnant. Change was necessary. But could he handle the responsibility of bringing someone like Mike into the light? Was he prepared to deal with the consequences, both in terms of business and in terms of their relationship? Peter's inner turmoil intensified. The decision wasn't just about cooking. It was about healing. It was about reclaiming a part of Mike that had been buried for so long. But Peter wasn't sure if he was ready for that level of vulnerability. Could he trust Mike not only as a chef, but as a person with a painful past? Could he be the one to give Mike the support he needed to overcome it? Peter took a deep breath, the air thick with the weight of his decision. He knew that this wasn't just about a job opportunity, it was about believing in someone who had long ago stopped believing in themselves. Peter had to decide whether he could offer Mike a second chance, not just for the restaurant's sake, but for Mike's sake, too. The restaurant could survive without this risk, but Mike might not. As Peter stood up from his desk and walked toward the kitchen, where Mike was busy preparing the day's orders, he felt a surge of both fear and hope. The decision he was about to make wasn't easy. In fact, it felt impossible. But deep down, Peter knew one thing for certain. By stepping into the unknown, both he and Mike could change the course of their lives forever. But could Peter face the weight of this responsibility? Could he push past his doubts and allow Mike the opportunity to rise? The answer to that question would define not only the future of the restaurant, but also the future of the man he had come to realize wasn't just his employee, but someone worth investing in. Peter stepped into the kitchen, heart pounding. The weight of his decision was heavy on his shoulders, and as he approached Mike, still immersed in his work, he could feel the air shift. Everything felt charged, like a storm was brewing. He couldn't delay this any longer. He had to act now, and yet, the uncertainty of the moment made him second-guess himself with every step he took. "Mike," Peter said, his voice breaking the rhythm of the kitchen. Mike didn't look up, but his hands faltered for just a moment before he continued slicing vegetables. Peter could tell he had heard him, but Mike was deliberately keeping his distance. The distance that had been there from the very beginning between the two men. Between Mike and his past. Between Mike and the world he had tried to leave behind. Peter's heart raced. This is it, he thought. I have to make the decision now. Before he could say anything more, a loud crash came from the back of the kitchen. A stack of plates toppled, sending shards of porcelain clattering across the floor. Mike didn't flinch. He simply crouched down to begin cleaning the mess. Peter, startled, glanced over at the commotion. But as he did, a voice shouted from the front of the restaurant, "Peter, we have a problem. One of the deliveries didn't come through, and we're missing key ingredients for tonight's special." Peter's stomach tightened. The pressure was mounting. Fast, this wasn't just a conversation anymore, it was a full-blown crisis. And he had to navigate it all. He turned back to Mike, his resolve beginning to waver. "How could I ask him now, Mike?" he said again, his voice more urgent this time. But Mike kept his focus on the broken dishes. His face expressionless, Peter's mind raced. The last thing he wanted was to ask Mike for more than he could handle. But the reality of the restaurant situation was undeniable. Tonight was their busiest night of the week, and without the key ingredients, they might lose their loyal customers. Worse, it would undo all the progress they'd made. Peter's thoughts spiraled. What if Mike can't handle the pressure? What if he's not ready to be the chef again? Before Peter could finish his thought, the kitchen door swung open, and one of the waiters rushed in, her face flushed with panic. "Peter, the oven's malfunctioning. It won't heat up properly. And we have orders piling up for roasted dishes." Peter's mind whirled. The tension was palpable. And with each new crisis, the weight of his decision pressed harder. This is it. This is everything. Can I really give Mike the reins now? Mike finally stood up, his eyes meeting Peter's for the first time in what felt like hours. There was a flicker of something determination, maybe, but also uncertainty. For a moment, Peter thought Mike might say something, that he might open up. But then Mike simply turned away, grabbing a nearby kitchen towel and wiping down the counter. Peter's heart sank. The silence between them stretched longer than it had before. But then, something changed. Mike suddenly moved with a confidence that caught Peter off guard. Without a word, he picked up a phone and called the supplier. His voice was calm and steady as he explained the situation, ordering the missing ingredients to be delivered within the hour. The change in him was instantaneous. It was as if the kitchen had become his domain again, his natural habitat. Peter watched, speechless, as Mike handled the situation with ease. Mike hung up the phone, turned to Peter, and finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "I'll take care of it. Just trust me." Peter stood frozen, his chest tightening. He had heard Mike's words, but they didn't feel like a simple offer. They felt like a challenge. Can I trust him? Can I really put everything on the line for him now? In that moment, everything seemed to collapse in on itself. The pressure of the night, the stakes of the restaurant, the weight of his own doubts. He could hear the ticking of the clock in his head, counting down the minutes. The first delivery wouldn't arrive for another hour, and they had to keep the momentum going. But the oven still wasn't working, and the customers were about to start arriving. This is it, Peter thought again. There was no turning back. Either Mike could rise to the occasion, or they would sink. Suddenly, Mike was moving through the kitchen, barking orders at the rest of the staff. His focus was razor sharp, and his energy seemed to fill the entire room. Peter stood still for a moment, taking it all in. This was Mike. This was the person he had been looking for all along. The person he had been so afraid to trust. Mike was taking control of the situation, leading the kitchen as if it were his own, with precision and ease. Peter had no choice but to watch in awe. Minutes ticked by, and Peter's anxiety grew, but Mike didn't falter. He made adjustments to the menu, creating new dishes on the fly, while organizing the staff with a calm authority that Peter hadn't seen before. The delivery was still missing, but Mike had already adapted. He'd made it work, substituting ingredients, improvising, and making sure the restaurant would be ready for the evening rush. Peter felt a wave of relief wash over him, but with it came something deeper, a sense of gratitude mixed with guilt. Had I been wrong to doubt him? The reality was harsh. He had underestimated Mike. Mike had proved more than capable, but Peter hadn't been ready to trust him completely until now. The first few customers began to arrive, and Peter could see the tension in their faces turn to surprise and delight as the dishes came out. Each one was beautifully crafted, bursting with flavors that made the restaurant feel alive again. Peter watched as Mike moved around the kitchen, orchestrating every movement with the precision of a master. For the first time in a long while, Peter felt like the restaurant was truly on the rise. But there was still one question hanging in the air. Could this be enough to turn everything around? Could Mike's quiet confidence be enough to carry them through the night, through the crisis, through the uncertainty? The answer was unfolding in real time, but the tension was far from over. Every moment felt like the next could bring a new challenge, a new test of faith. As the night unfolded, Peter stood back and watched, a sense of awe filling him. The kitchen, once chaotic and underprepared, was now a place of harmony and precision. Mike moved like a seasoned chef, each dish carefully crafted, each order sent out with the confidence and expertise Peter had only dreamed of. The restaurant was buzzing with life, and for the first time in a long time, Peter felt hope for the future. By the end of the night, the restaurant had not only survived the crisis, it had thrived. The customers were not only satisfied, they were impressed. The atmosphere was alive with energy and positivity. Peter could feel the weight that had been pressing on him for so long slowly lifting. He looked over at Mike, who was quietly wiping down the counters, as if the whole evening had been just another day at work. It was in that moment that Peter realized just how much he had underestimated Mike and how much Mike had always been capable of, if only Peter had given him the chance sooner. But the lesson was clear. Sometimes the people we least expect can surprise us in ways we can't imagine. The key wasn't just in Mike's skill, but in Peter's willingness to take a chance, to trust someone who had been hiding his potential for so long. It wasn't just about saving the restaurant, it was about giving someone the opportunity to rise, to show their worth, and to reclaim their passion. That was the heart of the story. Peter walked over to Mike, who was now closing down the kitchen for the night. "Mike," he said, his voice filled with gratitude, "you did an incredible job tonight. I was wrong to doubt you. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what you're capable of." Mike looked up, his expression unreadable at first. Then, a small, genuine smile appeared on his face. "You don't need to apologize, Peter," he replied softly. "I've been running from myself for a long time. I just needed someone to believe in me again." Peter nodded, understanding now more than ever the weight of that statement. Belief, it wasn't just about trusting someone's skills. It was about seeing them for who they truly were. Beyond the surface, beyond the quiet exterior, Mike wasn't just the humble worker Peter had thought he was. He was a man with a passion for cooking that had been buried under years of pain and regret. But now, with a second chance, he was able to rise again. Peter's heart swelled with emotion. He had learned an invaluable lesson, not just about business, but about people. In the world of high expectations and constant pressure, it's easy to forget the power of giving someone a chance. But that's what had made all the difference tonight. It wasn't just about saving a failing restaurant. It was about seeing potential in the people around you, even when they don't see it in themselves. As the last of the staff clocked out, Peter stood alone in the restaurant, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The restaurant was no longer just a place to eat. It had become a place of transformation, of second chances. Mike had shown Peter that it's never too late to rediscover your passion, and that sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change your entire world. The journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges ahead, more obstacles to overcome. But Peter knew deep in his heart that as long as he believed in the people around him, they would keep pushing forward. Together, the restaurant had been saved, but more importantly, a man had found his way back to his passion. As Peter walked out of the restaurant that night, he couldn't help but smile. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it.